Yeah. Shalom Israel, Shalom. Barakatha YaHaWah, Barakatha YaHaWaShi. Barakatha YaHaWah, Barakatha YaHaWaShi. Barakatha YaHaWah, Barakatha YaHaWaShi. BaHaSham, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach well and rule well. Peace and salutation to the Akim out there pushing us truth all over the earth. And to the Akwith listening, quietly listening, the few Akwith, Shalom. It's your brother Shema from the Pillars of Benjamin camp here in Toronto with a quick lesson. And the title of this lesson is Russia stopping exports of wheat, right? Right, of some of their commodities, man. Right, but yeah, we'll read the article, right? And this is just I read this article in the precept of Joseph holding back the bread in Egypt came to mind. So we're gonna read this article and then we'll read that precept, man. Cause this, nothing new under the sun, man. Right? Nothing new under the sun. World's biggest wheat supply dries up when some want it most. So Russia has exhausted their grain export quota 2 months ahead of plan. So they're cutting back on their wheat export, man. They're not sending none out, keeping it all within Russia. For the first time in a decade, the world risks being cut off from Russian wheat at a time when key buyers are rushing to import it, right? So, it's the law of economics, man. There's a demand for something, you're going to run around and try and gobble it all up, right? Maybe bank it, save it, and keep it for when the forecasted bad times come, right? For the first time in a decade, the world risks being cut off from Russian wheat at a time when some key buyers are rushing to import it. The top shipper last month limited sales through June to protect its own supply as the coronavirus crisis sparks food security concerns around the world, right? So Russia's the top shipper, right? And now they're in a protection mode to protect their supply, right? Although the curbs were seen loose enough to ensure normal trade flows for this time of year, Russia has already burned through their entire quota. It will halt grain shipments to all but 4 former Soviet neighbors once the last cargo booked under the limits leaves the country. Right? So they're halting all their exports of wheat, man. While the ban will only last until farmers start harvesting in July, some other nearby nations have also restricted grain exports, right? Copycats, right? So you see one doing it and everyone follows suit, right? So other nations are now banning their exports, right? So what's happening basically is, these nations are securing their well-being. They're pretty much saying F everybody else, right? While the ban will only last until farmers start harvesting in July, some other nearby nations have also restricted grain exports, threatening to reroute global trade and fueling worries about food shortages and higher prices. Countries from Egypt to Turkey are trying to load up on imports while they still can, and Russian shippers have been feeding that demand. There's been a flurry of activity recently, said Andrei Sizov Jr., managing director at consultant Sovicon in Moscow. Buyers want to stock up because they realize they may not have the chance to do it later. Right, stocking up, man. It's the same thing as panic buying, hoarding groceries, right? Right. The window has closed fast. In just a few weeks, shippers booked out all of the 7 million ton quota set through June, as well as strong demand from importers. A weak ruble is keeping Russian grain attractive. Also, sales from government stockpiles, another measure intended to safeguard domestic supplies, have helped contain local prices and keep exports competitive. The Agriculture Ministry on Sunday didn't specify when the last cargo booked under the quota could leave. One reason the limit has reached so quickly was because shippers rushed to get customs paperwork for future cargoes, according to Dmitry Riko, Director General at the Institute for Agricultural Market Studies. That means about 3 million tons could still be exported in the next 2 months, Reuters reported him saying. Yeah. Russia has a history of disrupting the wheat market through restrictions or taxes. So they have a history of disrupting the wheat market, but last imposed an outright ban in 2010 after drought destroyed crops. The move caused wheat futures to rally, and some researchers saw it as an indirect contributor to the Arab Spring uprisings. Right? Everything has an effect, man. Cause and effect. While there's still ample global supplies, the memories of past food shortages have restarted the debate about food nationalism. Organizations such as the United Kingdom's Slovakia, organizations such as the United Nations and European Union said the risk of social and political unrest is rising again as the pandemic spurs discontent, and urged against unjustified measures that could hurt food security and raise prices. Right? The Most High YaHaWaShi YaHaWaShi is at work, man. Right? Right? Nations are keeping banning exports and keeping theirs, man, for their own nations, right? Yo, famine's coming, man. It's in the pipeline, right? Us in this truth been beating that drum, blowing that trumpet, so to speak. You know what I mean? Genesis chapter 47. Let's see what Joseph did. Genesis chapter 47. Genesis 47 verse 13. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. Right? It was a great famine, man. You know what I mean? A great famine. Right? And Joseph, here's what Joseph did. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt, right? He gathered up all the money, all the lucre, right? And in the land of Canaan, for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house, right? So they banked that money. They put it away, man, right? And when money failed in the land of Egypt, right, when the dollar crashed, and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money failed, right? So Joseph said, okay, give me the cattle. And if the money fails, if it crashes, you guys run out of money, I'll give you bread for your cattle. Right? And they brought their cattle into Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of their herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with the bread for all their cattle for that year. So he gave them bread for their livestock, man. Right? When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Right? So they had nothing left, man. So now they're willing to sell themselves into servitude. Right? From famine, man. Right? For famine. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. Right? So buy us, put us to work. We're in servitude. We're in debt to you. We need food, man. We're in debt to you. And this is what's going to happen worldwide, man. You know what I mean? Some nations, some countries it's going to hit quicker than others, right? Some nations and some countries will be in good shape, good standing, a little bit of food, enough to feed their people, while next door will be ribs touching, man. Right? Right? So basically what Joseph did was a bailout. Right? Verse 19. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, but the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. Right? So Pharaoh, through Joseph's wisdom, Pharaoh gathered all the land of the people that were starving in Egypt, man. Right? So through Joseph's wisdom, he gained servants and land, which he gave to Pharaoh under Pharaoh's jurisdiction. Right? And we see there's nothing new under the sun, man. This famine that's coming, man. There's gonna be nations that are in straits, man. You know what I mean? Right? Ecclesiastes 1 verse Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Right? There's no new thing under the sun, man. History has a way of repeating itself, man. Right? Right? It's the same spirits on the earth, on the planet now, that were on the planet back then, man. Right? Through regeneration. Right? The same spirits that handed up our Lord and Savior, YaHaWaShi, to be nailed. Right? To be nailed to a cross. Right? Are the same spirits that are on this planet today, man. Right? So there's nothing new under the sun. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 14. Moreover, and this is toward Israel as a people, right? But it applies for wicked Esau, for the Babylon system, for the beast, right? Pursuant to Deuteronomy 30 verse 7. As a matter of fact, let's get it before we go into that. Deuteronomy 30 verse 7, right? Our curses are on our enemies. And YaHaWah thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. Right? So we're seeing our enemies in straits, man. Right? Let's get the precept now. Ezekiel 5 verse 14. Moreover, I will make thee waste and a reproach among the nations that are round about thee in the sight of all that pass by. Right? Nations are crumbling, man. Right? All these nations are crumbling on a worldwide scale, man. Right? Every nation is crumbling. Right? Primarily Babylon the Great, America the Great, spiritual Babylon, spiritual Egypt. Right? Verse 15. So it shall be a reproach and a taunt, an instruction and astonishment unto the nations that are round about thee, when I shall execute judgments in thee in anger and in fury and in furious rebukes. I, YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWaShi, have spoken it. Right? So the Most High's judgments are going forth on all nations, man. Right? Out of anger, because of the abominations and the fornications, the drinking of the fornication wine, the abominable wines, right? Which is the philosophies of Babylon the Great, America the Great, right? Verse 16, when I shall send upon them the evil arrows of famine, which shall be for their destruction, and which I will send to destroy you, and I will increase the famine upon you, and will break your staff of bread, right? This famine, this is just the beginning of the famine, man. Right? For destruction. Right? Let's get it in Esdras. We'll close out with this one. Second Ezra 16 verse 19. Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. Right? Scourges for amendment, man. This is punishment. This is YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWashi's judgments. Right? Famine and plague, tribulation and anguish. Right? Which the whole world, the whole planet is experiencing on a mass scale right now. And it's just the beginning. Verse 20, but for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, right? They're still going to idol worship and commit abominable offenses and denounce the Most High, YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWaShi, right? But for all these things they shall not return from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges, right? Not mindful, not understanding what's going on, not understanding that this is punishment, right? Behold, victuals shall be good cheap upon the earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. The other day I was gassing up and it's the cheapest I've seen fuel in my adult life, man. And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion, right? Every day we're seeing more another story of despair, right? Verse 22, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, right? Many are going to perish from famine, man. Many. And the others that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy, right? The other that escape, it'll be the sword, it'll be violence, right? The modern day gun, right? But yeah, that's it on that, man. I just wanted to touch a couple of precepts based on that article. YaHaWah, BaHaSham, YaHaWaShi, Qadash. Double honors to apostles and elders of a great millstone who teach well and rule well. Peace and salutation and Akimount. They're pushing his truth all over the earth. Right? Stay focused, stay prayed up. Pray without ceasing, Israel. Right? Pray without ceasing. Most High willing, we're of the elect. Kwam Yasharala, Abad Baba.